Welcome to i-TUTOR Economics NCERT series. We were studying chapter 9 Fiscal Economics and we had covered till the topic Methods of Redemption of Public Debt. Today we are going to start with a very important topic, that is budget. Okay, let's start. The term budget comes from the French word budget, which means a small leather bag. Originally, government officials carried their financial papers in such a bag, and this is how the word became associated with the government finances. Okay. Now, what is meant by budget? A budget is an annual financial statement of the government. It shows two main things for the upcoming financial year. What are they? Estimated income and also estimated expenditure. Estimated income, that is revenue, how much money the government expect to receive, and estimated expenditure means how much money the government plans to spend. So in simple words, a budget is the government's yearly plan of money coming in and money coming out. A budget is the government's yearly plan of money coming in and money going out. So what are the key points to remember? It is presented every year. Remember that budget is presented every year. It tells us the government's financial priorities, and also it helps the government plan welfare schemes, development projects and economic policies. It is mandatory under article, which article? Yes, it is mandatory under Article 112 of the Indian Constitution. That Article 112 is about Union budget. Okay, so the word budget is said to have its origin from the French word budget, which refers to a small leather bag. The budget is an annual financial statement which shows the estimated income and expenditure of the government for the upcoming year. Okay, now definition of budget. First, let's look at a definition of Renee Stone. She told that it's a document containing a preliminary approved plan of public revenue and expenditure. What does this mean? He says that a budget is a document that contains the already approved plan of how much money the government expects to receive, that is public revenue, and also how much money it plans to spend, that is public expenditure for the coming year. In simple words, it is the government's official financial plan for income and spending. Now let's look at another definition of Bastable. She told that the budget has come to mean the financial arrangements of a given period with the usual implication that they have been submitted to the legislature for approval. Okay, what does this mean? According to Bastable, a budget is basically the complete financial plan of the government for a specific period, usually 1 year. And this plan must be presented to the legislature, like parliament, so that the people's representatives can discuss it and approve it. In simple words, a budget is the government's yearly money plan which has to be shown to and approved by the parliament before it can be used. Okay, now we are going to learn about union budget and state budget. India follows a federal system, so budgeting happens at two levels, union budget and state budget. Union budget, it is prepared and presented by the central government. It is the annual financial statement required under Article 112 of the Indian Constitution. It is presented to the parliament, that is to Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. And what about state budget? It is prepared and presented by the state government. It is the annual financial statement under Article 202 of the Indian Constitution, and it is presented in the state legislative assembly. Okay, can I ask you something? Why there are two budgets? Because India has two levels of government, union and states, each with its own sources of revenue, expenditure responsibilities and constitutional powers. So they must prepare their own budgets every financial year. Okay. Now, types of budget. There are mainly two types of budget, revenue budget and capital budget. And this revenue budget consists of revenue receipt and revenue expenditure. What is called revenue receipt? Do you know what is meant by revenue receipt? Yes, revenue receipts include tax revenues like income tax, GST, customs and so on. And also it includes non-tax revenues like fees, fines, interest, dividends, etc. So this revenue budget contain revenue receipts and budget receipts and budget expenditure. And this budget receipts contain revenue receipts and capital receipts. Budget expenditure contain revenue expenditure and capital expenditure. So this revenue budget contains revenue receipts and revenue expenditure. And we told about the revenue receipt. This includes tax revenue and non-tax revenue. And tax revenue includes income tax, GST, customs, etc. Non-tax revenue includes fees, fines, interest, dividends and so on. And what about revenue expenditure? Revenue expenditure. These are payments for normal functioning of the government, such as salaries, pension, subsidy, interest payment, etc. Older classification used plan and non-plan, now discontinued after 2017 reforms. So that is about revenue budget. Revenue budget can be classified into revenue receipts and revenue expenditure. So remember that budget can be classified into revenue budget and capital budget, and revenue budget can be classified into revenue receipts and revenue expenditure. Now what about capital budget? It consists of capital receipts and capital expenditure. Capital receipts main sources are loan raised by the government, that is internal or external. Then recoveries of loans, disinvestment processes, these all are included in capital budget. Capital receipts. And what about capital expenditure? These creates assets or reduce liabilities such as building roads, bridges, dams, purchasing machinery, loans to states or PSUs and so on. Again, the earlier plan or non-plan classification is not used now. So that is about capital budget. And do you know about the term supplementary budget? So during emergencies like war, natural disasters or any unexpected expenses, the government may need additional funds beyond the regular budget. So to meet this need, it presents a supplementary budget in parliament or state assemblies. That is called supplementary budget. And next one, vote on account. It is under Article 160. When the full budget cannot be passed due to political reasons, usually general elections are near or the existing governments may not continue, the government seeks Parliament's approval to withdraw funds for a shorter period, typically 2 months. And this temporary arrangement is called vote on account or interim or lame duck budget. It is called lame duck budget. And it allows normal government functioning until the full budget is passed by the new government. Okay. Now, vote on account budget is a special provision through which the government seeks permission from Parliament to inquire expenditure on essential items until the full budget is passed. And it allows the government to withdraw money from the Consolidated Fund of India. Okay, allow to withdraw money from the Consolidated Fund of India for meeting necessary expenses during the interim period. So the key points to remember here is that it is approved by both houses of Parliament. It is used when the full budget cannot be passed in time, usually due to elections or political transitions. Then it is normally sanctioned for not more than 2 months, and it is only for expenditure and not for introducing new policies or major financial decisions. So that is about vote on account budget. Now ZBB, that is zero based budget. Zero-based budgeting was introduced in India in the Union Budget of 1987-88. And the zero-based budget is a budgeting method where every expenses has to be freshly justified for each new budget period. Unlike traditional budgeting, which start from last year's number and adds or subtract, this zero-based budget starts from zero, as the name suggests. And what are the key features of this? First one, fresh evaluation. Every activity or project is reviewed as if it is new, even if already exists. Then, justification required. Departments must prove why an expenditure is necessary based on cost and expected benefit. Then, Alignment with objectives. That is, the project must watch the socio-economic goals and priorities of society. Then efficient allocation. Unproductive or low priority activities can be reduced or discontinued, ensuring better use of resources. Okay, so that is about zero-based budget. Now, performance budget. A performance budget is a type of budget where the focus is on the result, that is performance of the government programs, rather than only on how much money is being spent. And it was first introduced in USA. The Administrative Reforms Commission was set up in 1949 under Sir Hooper, and this commission recommended the idea of preparing a performance budget. And what it means? In a performance budget, the government must clearly shows what is done, that is the activities completed, then how much done, the measurable results or outcomes, and also what benefits did people get, that is improvement in welfare services and so on. In India, the performance budget is popularly called the outcome budget because it reports the outcomes of government spending. That is about performance budgeting. Now, balanced budget was unbalanced budget. What is called balanced budget? A balanced budget is a situation where government's estimated revenue is equal to government's proposed expenditure. This means the government is planning to spend only as much as it expects to earn. And why is it important? It shows financial discipline. It reduces the need for borrowing, and also it helps maintain economic stability. So that is about balanced budget. And what is called unbalanced budget? A budget is called unbalanced when the government's revenue and expenditure are not equal. In simple words, we can say that revenue is not equal to expenditure. And these unbalanced budgets are of two types: surplus budget and deficit budget. Surplus budget. A surplus budget exists when government estimated revenue is greater than government's estimated expenditure. This means the government is earning more money than it is spending. Okay, revenue increases but expenditure decreases. Why does it happen? Because of good economic growth and high tax collection, and also government controlling unnecessary expenses. And what are the advantages of surplus budget? Do you know? Yes, it helps to control inflation. Then it builds government savings. It reduces need for borrowing, and also it improves financial stability. Okay, tell me what is tell me one disadvantage of surplus budget. Yes, of course, if the government spends too little, development may slow down. So that is about surplus budget. And what is called deficit budget? A deficit budget exists when government's estimated revenue is less than government's estimated expenditure. This means government is spending more than it is earning. Here revenue reduces and expenditure increases. And how does the government cover this deficit? Yes, borrowing, that is through public debt, then printing money, taking foreign aid or loans, etc. And what are the advantages of deficit budget? It is useful during economic slowdown. It creates job by increasing spending. Then supports welfare schemes, infrastructure and development. And what are the disadvantages? It increases public debt. It can lead to inflation, and also it creates long-term financial burden. So balanced budget revenue means expenditure of the government is equal to expenditure is equal to revenue. That is called balanced budget revenue. And surplus budget revenue means revenue is greater than expenditure. Deficit budget budget means expenditure is greater than revenue. Okay. Now we are moving to the next topic, that is budgetary procedure. Budgetary procedure. So this budgetary procedure means how the government prepares, passes and implements the budget every year. It includes 3 stages. What are they? Preparation of budget, presentation of budget, and also execution of the budget. Okay. Now first let's look at the Preparation of budget. Do you know who prepares the budget? Union budget is prepared by the Ministry of Finance, that is of central government, and state budget is prepared by Finance Department of the state. And this is the first and most important stage because all financial decisions begin here. While preparing the budget, the government considers several factors. Okay, so key steps in budget preparation is that first one, setting macroeconomic targets. The government first decides the broad economic goals for the year, such as GDP growth, inflation control, employment generation, investment targets, etc. And this decides the overall direction of the budget. And the second one, basic strategy of the budget. The government then chooses the theme or approach for the year's budget. For example, focus on agriculture, boosting infrastructure, improving manufacturing, social welfare emphasis, and so on. Then, estimating revenue expenditure. Okay. Revenue expenditure includes day-to-day expenses of the government, such as defense expenditure, subsidy, interest payment, pension, and so on. And this interest payment on loans are also very important. So these expenses do not create any asset. Then, financial need of different projects and ministry. Each ministry, even a railway, road, irrigation, or anything, they sends its cost estimate to the Ministry of Finance. These are examined and included in the budget. Then, estimating capital receipts. Capital expenditure includes spending on assets creating development projects such as railways, roadways, irrigation, etc. and construction of building. These expenditure creates long-term asset. Estimating revenue receipts. These includes tax revenue and non-tax revenue. Tax revenue includes income tax, GST, corporate tax, and so on, and non-tax revenue includes fees, fines, dividends, etc. Then estimating capital receipts. These include loan recoveries, disinvestment. Disinvestment means selling government shares in PSUs. Then market borrowing, small savings, and external loans. These help in meeting the gaps in income. Then finding the revenue gap. The government checks whether revenue receipts is greater than or equal to revenue expenditure. This helps calculate the revenue deficit. Okay, so government checks whether revenue receipts is greater than or equal to revenue expenditure, or revenue receipts is greater than less than or equal to revenue expenditure. Then estimating deficit. Finally, the government calculates fiscal deficit, primary deficit, and revenue deficit. Okay, tell me what is called fiscal deficit. What is meant by fiscal deficit? Fiscal deficit means total expenditure minus total receipt, excluding borrowing. Remember that, excluding borrowing. Fiscal deficit means total expenditure minus total receipts, excluding borrowing. And what is called primary deficit? Fiscal deficit minus interest payment is called primary deficit. And revenue deficit, revenue expenditure minus revenue receipts. So these figures indicate the government's financial health. And this is about the preparation of budget. Now, presentation of the budget. After the preparation stage, the next step in the budgetary process is its presentation before the legislature. Who presents the budget? Union budget is presented by the Finance Minister of India in Lok Sabha, and state budget is presented by State Finance Minister in the State Legislative Assembly or Vidhan Sabha. Okay, as per Constitution, all money bills must be introduced only in the lower house, and Lok Sabha at the central level and Vidhan Sabha at the state level. The budget, that is annual financial statement, is also a kind of money bill. And what does this budget include? Budget includes tax proposals, expenditure proposals, receipts and revenue estimates, demands for grants from various ministries, and so on. And these are presented in the form of finance bill. It contains tax proposals. These are presented in the form of finance bill and also appropriation bill. Finance bill means it contains tax proposals. Appropriation bill gives legal authority to withdraw funds from the consolidated fund of India. And budget is presented in the Lok Sabha or Vidhan Sabha, and general discussion takes place. Department wise demand for grants are discussed and voted upon. Then finance bill is passed, that is laws related to taxation come into force. Appropriation bill is then passed, that is expenditure gets legal sanction, and once approved the budget becomes operative for the new financial year. So this is about the presentation of budget. Okay, clear? So how is the budget present? Budget is present at the Lok Sabha or Vidhan Sabha. Then a general discussion take place. Then department wise demand for grants are discussed and then voted upon. Then finance bill is passed, appropriation bill is passed, and once approved the budget become operative for the new financial year. Then so we have learned about the preparation of budget and presentation of budget. The next one, execution of the budget. Once the budget is passed by the parliament or state legislature, the next stage is execution. Who execute the budget? The various ministries and departments of the government are responsible for implementing the budget programs. So what is the importance of proper execution? It ensures efficient utilization of allocated funds. Then prevents wastage and leakage. Ensures that expenditure aligns with the socio-economic objectives of the government. So these are the importance. Now, parliamentary control over the budget. To ensure accountability and transparency, Parliament exercises strict control over how the executive spends money. Government accounts in India. According to Constitution, government accounts are maintained in three major parts: consolidated fund, contingency fund, and public account. Consolidated Fund of India. All revenues received, all loans raised, and all expenditure incurred are part of this fund. No money can be withdrawn without Parliament's approval from Consolidated Fund of India. And Contingency Fund of India, they are kept at the disposal of the President or Governor at state level, and it is used for urgent unforeseen expenditure. And what about Public Accounts of India? Money that the government holds in trust, for example Provident Fund and small savings or deposits, not subject to prior parliamentary vote. So what budget preparation process, as we have told, first ministries and departments prepare estimates of income and expenditure, then it is sent to Ministry of Finance, then Ministry of Finance scrutinizes, evaluates and adjusts estimate. Then preparation of budget document, it is consolidated by the Ministry of Finance, then it is presented to the Cabinet for approval, budget is finalized for presentation, and Finance Minister present the budget in the Parliament. Okay. And Parliamentary Committee for Budget Approval, to ensure expenditure does not exceed limit sanctioned by Parliament. Two important committees monitor the government financial activities. What are they? Public Account Committee and also Estimate Committee. This Public Account Committee examines the appropriation account and the audit report of CAG. It ensures public money is spent according to parliamentary sanction. It checks irregularities and inefficiencies. And what about Estimate Committee? It evaluates whether funds are being used efficiently, and also it suggests improvements in organization, policy planning and administration. It examines whether expenditure is within permissible limit. Okay. Now we are going to learn about budgetary deficit. A budgetary deficit occurs when the government's total expenditure exceeds its total receipt. In the Indian context, budget deficit is classified into four major types: revenue deficit, budget deficit, fiscal deficit and also primary deficit. So what is called revenue deficit? Revenue deficit refers to excess of revenue expenditure over revenue receipt. It means the government's current income is not sufficient to meet current expenditure. Okay. For example, revenue deficit is equal to revenue expenditure minus revenue receipt. And if revenue expenditure is greater than revenue receipt, there is revenue deficit. And what does it implicate? It shows the government is living beyond its means for daily functioning. Then it leads to borrowing even for routine expenses such as salaries, pensions, subsidies, etc. It indicates financial irresponsibility or high welfare burden. That is about revenue deficit. Now, what is called budget deficit? Budget deficit is the difference between total expenditure and total receipt, including both revenue and capital. And a budget deficit is equal to total expenditure minus total receipt, revenue plus capital for both. So India no longer uses this measure officially. It was discontinued because it did not reflect true borrowing requirements. Then fiscal deficit. Fiscal deficit is the excess of total expenditure over total non-borrowed receipt. It measures how much the government needs to borrow, and the formula is fiscal deficit is equal to total expenditure minus revenue receipts plus non-debt capital receipts, where non-debt capital receipts is equal to recovery of loans plus disinvestment proceeds. And what is the implication here? It shows total borrowing requirements of the government. Then it indicates pressure on future generation, and also it is the main indicator of financial health. Now, last one, primary deficit. What is called primary deficit? Primary deficit shows the real borrowing requirement of the government excluding interest payment on past loans. And primary deficit is equal to fiscal deficit minus interest payment. And what is the importance of primary deficit? Yes, if primary deficit is equal to 0, it means primary deficit is equal to 0, it means the government only borrows to pay interest on previous debts. And if it is positive, there is additional excess expenditure. And if it is negative, it is called primary surplus, showing good fiscal discipline. So this is about primary deficit. And remember this equation, this was a previous year question. Primary deficit is equal to fiscal deficit minus interest payment. So this is all about the topic budget. This is a very important topic for UPSC prelims as well as for mains. So learn it clearly. So this is all about today. Hope you understand. Thanks for watching. For more related contents, do like, share and subscribe.